Ah! In this video, we're going to cover a new type of operator, something called the relational operator. Now, when I say operator, so far you are used to things like the assignment operator or the addition, multiplication, division, subtraction, various operators. However, this is going to be just a bit different. Sometimes in programming, we want to ask more complex questions. Now, these questions essentially boil down to one of two values. They're either true or they're false. But as you'll see, we're going to use symbols such as greater than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or even a new type of equals operator that's going to allow us to ask these kinds of complex questions of single statements and combinations of statements. Now, I also promised that we were going to see a new data type this week. And we're going to see one called the Boolean. Now, some of you who have seen this in algebra or an engineering course or physics may know this, and it operates similarly. It's basically true or false. And notice here I have full word true, full word false, both capitalized, no quotes around them. They look like strings. And to us, they are. However, without the quotes around them, the computer actually evaluates them as the values that they are, as true or false. Whenever we ask a question using our relational operators, and we can string them together into multiple expressions that we'll see in a later video how to do, no matter how complex the question, it really always boils down to one of those two answers. It either is or it isn't. So we are able to sort of determine the relationships between things, and as we will see again in another future video, we can take action based on how that relationship works out, whether something we can assume is true or it's false. You're in luck. I'm about to introduce you to a rivalry as old as time. Snakes versus cats. Now, of course, we know who the winner is here. It's just obvious. But we're going to use these two variables to do some tests and find out how relational operators work. Now, we're not going to see every one of them. We're going to see about 4 of them. And one of them is going to be a brand new one that I didn't show you on an earlier slide. But we should learn roughly how all of the other operators work, and I'm going to use some integers just for basic comparison here to show you how this all works. In order to actually get the values of these expressions, because all we're doing is supplementing the kinds of expressions that we can now put in our programs, I still have to do the kind of assignment. I still have to get a value from them. Now, this value, as I intuited earlier, or I kind of intimated a bit, this is going to be a true or false value. So we're also going to see Booleans up front as well pretty quickly. So let's get to some of the work. I'm going to define snakes as 8, and I'm going to define cats as 9, of course, because cats have all 9 lives. We know that. All 9 lives. And I'm going to compare them. Now I'm going to use the greater than, I'm going to use the less than equal to, and I'm going to use the double equal and a new one just to look at how our expressions differ just a bit. So the first one I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to say that result gets the value of snakes greater than cats. Now what we're asking here is essentially, is 8 greater than 9? Now you and I know the answer, but for the sake of going through the example, I'm going to print result, and this should give me again a Boolean. So you should expect one of 2 results here. You should expect either a true or a false, and because we know that 8 is in fact not greater than 9, when I run this, I should get my false, and I do. Now we can also ask questions that result in the other Boolean value, which is result equals something like snakes less than or equal to cats. Now again, we're asking essentially result gets the value of 8 less than or equal to 9. Now we know that 8 is in fact less than or equal to 9. So if I were to print result, what I should get is my true as well. And I do. So again, all we're really doing is changing what happens after the gets. Now, these relational operators, again, just ask questions about the relationship between 2 things. And one of those relationships is to ask, in fact, if the 2 quantities, snakes and cats in this case, are equal. And it's a similar expression, but I'm going to show it because it looks a little confusing at first because I'm going to use a lot of equal signs here. So I'm going to ask the question, result equals snakes, double equal cats. Trying to do a portmanteau there. Snakes double equal cats. I'm asking the question, is snakes in fact equal to cats? Now, the double equal shouldn't fool you. It is not an assignment. The only assignment here is the result gets. That's it. Double equal is always a question. It's always a comparison. And I'm asking here if, in fact, snakes is equal to cats. And if I print result, we know that snakes are definitely not equal to cats. 8 is not equal to 9. So we should get a false here. And again, we do. However, that last question raises an issue. do we ever actually want to know whether it's true that these two quantities are different? And we can ask that question as well with another operator, the not equal operator. And I'm going to show you that here just to show you another way in which we can ask the same kind of question but get a different result. So I'm going to say result gets the value of snakes does not equal cats. Now here the exclamation mark can be read as not. So again, if we read the full expression, we're reading it snakes does not equal cats. Result gets snakes does not equal cats. And we know that in fact 8 does not equal 9. So in this case, even if it's not what we expect it to be, it's not equal, we still get a value in case that value is in fact true. That was a short video, but we learned a lot. First, we learned that there's a new Boolean data type, and this data type could either store the value of true or false. It is basically a simple answer to what could amount in a later video to a complex question. And that question involves new operators that determine the relationship between, not necessarily the contents of, the variables that we were using in our example, in this case, snakes and cats. Now, we're going to learn how to ask way more complex questions as we go down the road here in the next few videos. But suffice to say that we could start to do things with this. And that's what we're going to see in the next video.